Hello, guys. Welcome to How to Build a Team podcast.
Hey,
Tonight
everybody.
or today, good morning and good evening to all of you. We have a very special, amazing guest tonight. He was. Let me introduce him. So, yeah. Um, So, our very special guest tonight, he is the best selling author of Real Time Strategic Change. Jake Jacobs has more than 25 years of track record successfully helping people get clear, connected, committed, and achieving better and lasting end results. I read the book. He sent us a copy of the book that he's gonna launch. So I'm very excited. I was able to browse the book. I'm sorry because I wasn't able to finish. It's this thick. I actually printed it out. It's over here, and I was reading it, and this is something that our listeners will definitely benefit from, Jake. So why
Absolutely.
don't we welcome Jake? Welcome, Jake, to the show.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm pleased to be here.
Hey, Jake.
Great. Jake, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about yourself. What do you do? Why are you doing what you're doing? And that, yeah.
Great. So first off, Pam, I have to say thank you for saying it was 25 years. Actually, it's been 35, but we're not going to get into ages here. And I work with leaders and organizations of all types. I've worked on a tuberculosis control project in New York City. I've worked with the National Health Service, Corning and TJ Maxx. So lots of organizations as well as local theaters. But I work with leaders in change who are frustrated that the results that they achieve are too slow, too hard, or too often disappointing. And so a lot of people in the world of change have the best of intentions and for one reason or another hit a wall. And a lot of people talk about it as resistance, but I've dedicated 35 years of my career, the entire bit of it. I had mentioned my first consulting job was when I was attending bar in college. And I said to the owner, I wanted to do an independent study. And he said, "That's fine, Jacobs, just don't F it up." And so that was my first client consultant relationship. I did not F it up. I got an A on the independent study, and he was not upset about that. So this is what I've done my whole life. I love it. I feel really blessed to be able to do it. And the book Leverage Change is a distillation of what I've learned over the past 35 years.
Now that you've mentioned about the book, the reason why I so love about the book, I mentioned this in the beginning of the show because it's very timely. The email that we're going to send out to our list are the things that you mentioned in the book. So when I was reading your book, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what we're talking about. So why don't we dive deep into the levers that you mentioned in the book? There are 8 levers for change, to give you clarity, to give you faster results. I want to dive deep into that. You mentioned there, the number one item there was pay attention to continuity. See those resisting change as key contributors, not troublemakers. I love that. Can you expound on that, Jake?
Sure. So the concept of leverage change came from Archimedes. There's a picture in my office that I commissioned 25 years ago. Archimedes was a 3rd century BC Greek mathematician, and he was famous for describing leverage, the concept of it. And he said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." And I believe people can move their worlds in the arena of change with fewer headaches, hassles, and problems. So whereas most people who work in the world of change talk about change, I take a different approach. And I think that continuity is as important as change when you're trying to do business in new ways. And by that, I mean that a lot of people get nervous, apprehensive, and have anxiety about change. And I think that's because leaders talk all about change, but they don't give people a firm footing on continuity. What's going to stay the same that we can then feel comfortable taking a leap into the unknown? So
Yeah.
I tell my clients, I say, make a list of those things that are going to change. And then with your people, make a list of those things that are going to keep the same, but make that list twice as long. And
Right.
so when you get a list that's twice as long, you really can appreciate that most things during times of great upheaval and change are actually staying the same. And I think that a lot of people rebel. Somebody I talked to yesterday on a podcast said, people don't mind change, they mind being changed. And
Mhm.
I agree with that. And so I think that focusing on continuity helps organizations that are struggling with what, often gets called change fatigue. Every
Mhm.
time you turn around the corner, there's another change coming, and we got to do business in new ways. And there's
Mhm.
competition and technology and trends, all these things that are going on. And I say, pay attention to continuity as well as to change.
Yeah. Well, very well said, Jake. Like with what's happening right now, I mean, since last year, with the pandemic and all, so many things has changed, but it doesn't mean that you have to stop whatever you're doing. It's actually taking a look and analyzing inside your business what is working. And if it is working, then just keep on doing it. Continue doing that. And maybe, leverage that and make it better, but do not stop because a lot of people are counting on you, especially for us. We are entrepreneurs, business owners, consultants, coaches like you, Jake. The world needs someone who can, guide them so that they will keep on helping people. That is very, babe, you're going to say something.
Yeah, the message around that is that to get really effective change, there needs to be some continuity as well. Some things need
Right.
to not change.
Yeah.
And I've had a variety, let's call it a variety of different careers in my life, and I've worked in small entrepreneurial businesses. I've worked for myself, obviously, for a number of years, but I also worked in corporate life. And in the corporate world, there was always this push of, this isn't working. We're not getting the results we want. We're going to change everything and get the results that we want. And we would go through change. And then a year later, we were changing the change. And then next year after that, we were changing the change again.
Yep.
And it got frustrating and scary for the employees. I was in a sort of a middle management job, so I was kind of stuck between both worlds.
Yeah.
But if only we, the collective we, had the forethought to have some continuity, keep some things the way they were and change some things, we might have actually been successful in making change. But we never were. We would hit a brick wall and go back to the old way of doing things until we came up with the next great idea to change everything.
Yeah.
Well, David, I have a great book for you. It's called Leverage Change. It might help you if you looked at the first chapter or some of your executives in those companies, because if they can put a spotlight on continuity, and I'm not saying don't focus on change, I'm just saying it's not enough. It's half the story, and people know that. So you have to focus on all of reality to really capture people's imagination and energy.
Yeah, especially in a big organization with hundreds of employees.
Yeah.
Employees are inherently nervous people. They don't want wholesale change. They're all for improvement, but nobody.
Yep.
That whole thing
Yep.
comes down to who wants change? We do. Who wants to change? Nobody does.
Right. Right.
So if you can make change management less scary for the actual workers, for the people who are going to work under the change, if you can make them more confident in what's happening, I think that's got to be a key to success right there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this one thing as well that in the book you mentioned: think and act as if the future were now.
Yeah.
Envision a winning future, communicate lessons learned far and wide.
Yeah.
Why did you say this?
Well, A lot of things in the book are set up so that there's a common problem that organizations bump up against with change. And then I offer a lever along with Archimedes, right? I offer these levers that will help you address those. So this one deals with the problem of change being too slow. And when you get people on board and they're focused on change, often it's too slow and people complain about that. So thinking and acting as if the future were now is a different paradigm. It's a different way of thinking about change. So rather than the future being something that's out there, we're going to get to it at a later point in time. We spend a lot of time planning for it. Well, I think and act as if the future were now. So what this means is that we get some image of that future that we want, and any image at all will work. It can even be just a small one, but then we say, all right, if we were in this preferred future that we have, how would we think? How would we act? What decisions would we make? What people would be in the room, right? I had a client that was arguing, the executives, about sales in these regions and what was going to win the new sales, and they didn't know enough. So they said, well, we wanted to have a participative organization. And I said to them, well, live that today. Be there now. And so they actually called in salespeople who were in the office. They dialed up salespeople who were in the field. They brought these people into the room. And rather than talking about becoming a participative organization, they became one. And in that moment, they got new information, they got new insights, and they got a better strategic decision. So this whole notion of saying, well, the future's out there, and I'm talking about a different paradigm, a different way of thinking about the present and future. And the more you blur that line between the present and future, the faster change is going to occur, and you're going to start living that preferred future here and now.
Right, right. Having a plan and a strategic plan is really the key there. You cannot say, oh, the campaign is still in 2 months, in 3 months. No, you have to prepare, you have to plan and think that it is now. What if there's no tomorrow, right?
Right.
So you have to have that plan. And if you have a team, I mean, there's a reason why you hire those people. Engage them, get the best of them, ask for their opinion, ask questions. And the example that you've given here is about actually teamwork. They sat, they talked, they discussed, they brainstorm, and they came up with a plan for now. Even if we're talking about it's for the next 3 months, for the next quarter, it is still a plan that you have to prepare, right?
Yeah, and Pam, one of my favorite things to tell clients, because I believe in practical advice. There are 44 stories in the book of people taking these levers and putting them to work. And so I encourage clients, I say, look, there's 4 magic words. And if you can remember them, it'll make a big difference in terms of how effective your team is and how effective your organization is. And those magic 4 words are, could you say more? And so rather than assuming that I know what you're going to say, or worse, I know what I'm going to say and I don't really care what you're going to say, what you can do is say, can you say more? And what it does is it encourages the other person to share more. It encourages them to go deeper. It encourages them to feel safe to be able to express their own opinion. Whereas if you're the leader, most people are nervous about that and they withhold information just because of the dynamics of the hierarchy. So could you say more would be something that's a very practical, very hands-on thing that your listeners could take away and start doing right here and right now.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I love that. You know what? It reminded me, Jake, how we do here at Great Work Online. We would have a project management meeting every week. And even though David and I would brainstorm and discuss about his opinion about on something, about a client, about a campaign, about a project, we would go back to, we have a team of digital marketing experts.
Yep.
Why don't we bring on these questions and ask for their opinion?
Yep.
And so every Monday, we do get an update for each of our clients' projects. And if there is an idea, we talk about it, we brainstorm. And after that, the client loved that. We're going to say, hey, we talked about this. This is the best practices. This is what we're going to do. And we believe that 90% this is going to work. It's just a matter of, strategic planning. We're going to put in the work. We're going to do the heavy lifting. And then that's it. You have to be patient and you have to use your resources. If you have a team, then use them, talk to them, ask for their opinion, because there is a reason why you hired these people. And what is that saying, babe, that you
Hire who you trust and trust who you hire.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
I see so many, especially entrepreneurs, and I work in a very entrepreneurial environment, and I meet people who will hire a manager or a production person or an assistant or whatever the role is, and then they'll micromanage that person, and they'll go through all of the angst and all of the stress of reviewing resumes and interviewing all these people and trying to decide who to hire, and then they bring somebody on and then they keep telling them how and what to do.
Absolutely.
And it's you hire people for a reason, because they're better at something or more efficient at something than you are. Let them do their job.
Yeah.
And it reminds me, there's another lever, which is around the problem that people don't know enough to make good decisions. So often leaders will ask people what they think, but they don't give them the context. They don't give them the background. They don't give them the information to make good decisions. So there's a lever that's called create a common database. And that lever, we used in a client, we have a group coaching program. And in that group coaching program, there was a client who had a very complex buyout on a merger and acquisition. And they had convertible bonds and floating interest rates. And we talked with them about, well, who needs to know this information? And they said everybody, so that they would have a sense of urgency, because the sooner they paid off that debt, the sooner they didn't have to worry about those floating interest rates and convertible bonds. And so they had a mini MBA course for their employees as part of this common database. The question is, what information is needed? Well, they needed an MBA course. So they gave that to their employees so that they could make better decisions. So that common database of the team, like you're saying, bringing in an idea and getting input and you hearing from them as well as them hearing from you. I think it's a two-way street, and make better decisions when you have more information.
Right. You also mentioned in that lever about putting a process.
Yes. So this is not a one-time deal, right? Yes. So you get learning organizations. There's a fellow in my field, Peter Senge, who wrote a book called The Learning Organization. And it's well and good to do that once. It's way better to put in place ongoing processes. So when you come in on Monday morning and you have a conversation with your employees, that's an example of a process and a system and a structure that you've put in place. It's on autopilot. You don't have to remember to share information with your people so you can make good decisions together. You've got that Monday morning meeting. And if you show up and they show up at that meeting, it takes care of itself. So I believe that sustainability is really important. And I talk about in the book, rubber band change, where something changes for 6 months. And then what you find is that rubber band that you've stretched snaps back and you're back to doing business as usual, because you haven't put in place some systems and structures that sustain that change or those new behaviors over time.
Yeah. If you guys would like to grow and have that continuity and have that effective team, I think the basic foundation first is for you to put up a process and a system, or else it's not going to work. Everything is like in a spur of a moment, right? And it can't be like that.
Right.
So this book really talks about how you can be clear about your goal, about having a team, having that clear mindset, and how you can be a good leader so that you can achieve your goal. In the book, you itemized and explained every levers. And I can't wait to finish the book because I just highlighted some of the pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't wait to finish the book. It's right here, Jake. I printed it
I
out.
I saw the highlights. I'm impressed. I feel
Yes.
like I should tell my mother that somebody's out there reading the book before it's published
Uh,
and highlighting it. She'd be so proud.
yeah, and thank you so much for sending us this book. This is going to be useful for us and for the team. And there is this thing here in the book that is so compelling and so powerful because this is like a roadmap to success.
Yeah.
You narrow down all the items. There are 8 levers, and we've talked about it. Feels like we've been talking for like hours already about this because there's so much to talk about here. We've talked about, I think, 3 levers only, but there are 8.
Yeah.
I also would like to highlight in the book, you mentioned here, develop a future people want to call their own. Engage your stakeholders in ways they will want to engage with you. I think this is very important. Tell us more about this.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one comes from the problem, and I hear this a lot from my clients and people in organizations say, "What's in it for me?" Right?
Mhm.
What's the payoff for me? And they even have a way of saying it, which is WIFM, which is what's in it for me with the first letters. So this WIFM problem is very prevalent. And I think that the issue with it is people don't see themselves in the future. They're asking at an individual level, which tends to look selfish. I mean, they're trying to do their best for the greater good, but they're concerned about the implications and the impact. We start with what it means for me. So when you have this what's in it for me issue, if you develop a future people want to call their own, that means everybody's going to want to call it their own. I see myself in that future. I'm excited by that future. It pulls me forward in the work that I'm doing. I feel part of a team. So again, I'm just going to go back and affirm, congratulate you. Those Monday meetings are another example of developing a future that people want to call their own. You're creating the kind of organization that people want to belong to. And I believe one of the greatest retention strategies and recruitment strategies, the way to get the best people, David, that you were talking about, is to have a great organization. And they're going to want to come work for you, and they're going to want to stay working for you because it's a place that they love. And that is about developing a future that people want to call their own. I'll have pride in this organization, and I'll want to tell my friends and family and other people. So I become an ambassador to the organization, and I can even recruit people to say, you know what, this is a great place. You ought to come join me because Pam and David really listen to what we're saying. That's a great strategy. And it doesn't cost you another penny. It doesn't cost you in salaries. It doesn't cost you in benefits. All these things that entrepreneurs have to worry about to balance the books. This is about creating a place that people want to call their own.
Right. And once you were able to develop that process, the system, you also mentioned get the right people involved from the start. That is very so true. If you really want to grow, I mean, you really have to invest. Make that decision, make that assessment inside your business. If you need help, then find somebody who can guide you. Find a coach, find a mentor so that you'll be able to not to create mistakes. You'll be able to create mistakes. You mentioned that in the book, and don't be afraid to do mistakes, to make wrong decisions, because that's part of the journey. But for you to lessen those mistakes, you have to have somebody to guide you. And like what we mentioned in the beginning, the structure, the process should be like your foundation. And you were saying about you have to create that future that your market would want to have that same future. I mean, you also have to step back and think or put yourself in your market's shoes, in your client's shoes. and see what they feel, what do they think, and then that's where you're going to start.
Yeah, and
Hello?
Pam, I just want to jump in and say
Yeah.
absolutely, because developing a future people want to call their own, it's all the people. So when you think about stakeholders, if you're there developing a future your employees love and your customers hate, you're not going to be around in that future to experience it. So you need to be listening to the market. You need to listen to trends and evolving where your industry's going. But
Mhm.
when you develop a future that everybody wants to call their own, right?
Right.
Maybe I should have put everybody instead of just people want to call their own. That's where the magic comes in. And I couldn't agree more with you. I feel like I'm sitting around with the best friends who helped write the book with me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, oh my gosh, this book is so good. You even mentioned here, make change work part of daily work. Coordinate around common goals. This is very important. We've mentioned about having a team. Do not ignore your team. Do not exclude them with what is your goal? What is the purpose? Like, for example, when we do a project or when we do a campaign, I do talk to the client all the time and strategize and plan with the client. And then I coordinate this with the rest of the team. You have to, when you assign a task to a
Yeah.
project manager, to a VA, you have to tell them what is the goal, what is the purpose of this task, so that they have a feel of urgency and importance, that they are not just part of the system, but they are part of your growth, part of the client's success if they know what they are doing. And
Yeah.
I feel like there is power to that when you get them involved into your client's project, into your target market's concerns and issues and pain points and all of those things. So can you expound more on that, Jake?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a huge fan of the way that you guys work and what you talk about. So I have 12 people who help me in my organization get my work done. And years ago, there's a man named Dan Sullivan. I took an entrepreneur's course with him called the Strategic Coach. I highly recommend it. And one of the things they talked about was unique ability. And they said, you've got to find the magic spot where you do things well, it's easy for you to do, and others value highly. And if you can think of those as three circles where you get the concentric center where you love to do it, it's easy for you to do, and others value it highly. Listen, when you're doing that work, you're doing the work that you were born to do. And so, what I work really hard in my organization to do is stick to the knitting, do what I do, and Lord, let everybody else do what they do. I have a VA, Taryn Merrick, I've worked with for 13 years. And in that relationship, boy, she takes care of details. And I send her notes and I look, I should do the creative work. I should do the work that makes a difference for people. And we're going to find people. I have a man in Pakistan. I have a man in India. I've got people across, there's a woman in Canada and across the US that work for me to be able to help me do what I do best.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. You have to read the book, guys. There's nothing more I can say.
Absolutely.
This is like a roadmap. This is you itemized all the things that are very important for you to be able to have that clarity, and for you to be able to go from point A to point Z in fast, easy, and the best way that you can. I mean, I can stress that enough. We share the same value. You also patronize outsourcing. You mentioned offline that you have a team of 12 team members
12
already.
team members.
Yeah. So we have like 15, and it's around the globe. We've got here in the country and overseas. So I mean, this is like destiny for us to meet, Jake.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's certainly a meeting of the minds. And I think this
Yeah.
leverage change, 8 ways to achieve faster, easier, better results. My request to your readers, it's a simple one, is get the book and read it like Pam's doing. And then
Yeah.
put a review on Amazon. You know, if you like what you see and you think it'll help other people, that's my mission with this book. Put something up there that's going to encourage people. And frankly, if you read it and you go, don't know what this guy was thinking, then you put that up there too, because we want to protect people from having to spend their time and money on it. But my bet is that when you get it, the goal is that immediately you can do something. On my website, I have a free ebook that's called 27 Ways to Achieve Faster, Easier, Better Results Immediately. And so these are things that you can take out, and tomorrow morning, this afternoon, you can start putting into practice what I talk about, what Pam, David, and I have talked about this morning. You can put it into practice, test it yourself. And my bet is you're going to find that there are some really useful tips and advice that you can start using immediately. And once you convince yourself that's worthwhile, okay, then go out and pick this book up and read it and start getting even more value.
I couldn't agree more, Jake. I am not even half of your book reading it, and I already highlighted some of the pages. Some we are already implementing into Great Work Online, and this is amazing. This is a good find. Before we wrap this up, let's just have fun here, Jake. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. There is no right or wrong answers. It's just for fun. So here's one. What is the one thing you'd be really disappointed if you never get to experience?
I'm supposed to marry a woman I love. COVID got in the way. It was supposed to happen in June in Italy, and we said we want it to be special, so it's not going to be one of those backyard deals. And boy, oh boy, I would have trouble on my hands if that marriage never occurred. So that's number 1 on my list. As soon as the world opens up, I'm headed to the Amalfi Coast to put a ring in my finger.
That is so funny. I'm going to let you and David talk in private, offline. We just, we're engaged. And because of COVID, we don't want to be in front of the judge and the 2 of us and the 3 of us. So of course we want to have some other people as well. But because of COVID, social distancing, don't gather. So it can wait, right? So that's cool. Number 2, if you could be a personal assistant to anyone, who would it be? But before you answer that, Jake, I'm going to let you think about that question for a moment. You mentioned that you have 12 members in your team. And for sure, you have your own personal assistant. You have your VA. You said, I forgot her name. You said you've been working with her for 13 years. Yep. And you know how important this is. A VA, your personal assistant, is like a lifesaver for any entrepreneurs, right?
Absolutely.
So you are going to be that lifesaver for someone. Who would it be?
Great. So I'm going to tell you about the kind of person who would be my perfect boss. I don't know who the specific person would be, but boy, oh boy, they would be somebody who loves to get help with creativity and new ideas and innovation. And so anybody who's out there right now listening, if that's what you need, you go to jakejacobs.com and you leave me a note, because maybe we can work out a deal in my spare hours where I can be your creativity opportunity and you can focus on the details and the rest of the work to make your business successful.
I love it. I love that. All right, last one. Given the choice of anyone in the world, whom would you want as a dinner guest?
Okay, I think, and I've watched some of this. He seems to be popping up on my screen. So there's a man named Thomas Keller in the States who runs a restaurant called the French Laundry, and this is a very, very famous, very fancy restaurant that is in Napa Valley. And what I would like to do is I would like to have Thomas Keller to dinner, but guess what? I want him to help cook the meal, and I want to enjoy that French food, and I'll sit down and break bread with him, but he's got to get in the kitchen about 2 hours early to help me make sure that I do a good job and I learn something about the cooking too, because I'm a lifelong learner. And when it comes to the kitchen, I love to cook. It's in the back of my book, especially with odd leftovers in the fridge. I seem to have magic with, but I'm not going to have the kind of magic that Thomas Keller has. So sign me up with him.
I love that.
That's awesome.
Okay, this is a very good episode with you. We learned a lot. I learned a lot. I hope our listeners learned a lot as well. Where can we find you, Jake?
Sure. So I do some fun videos, minute and a half videos that drop 3 times a week on LinkedIn. And you can find me there at jakejacobs.com. I call them Jake on Change. And so they're very quick videos that will give you some insight and some tips. That's one place I think your listeners will appreciate. I have a Twitter account, which is at Jake Jacobs. And then my website, which is jakejacobsconsulting.com, where I said you can get that free ebook of the 27 ways. You can get an excerpt from the book, so the first chapter and the introduction and preface is there. And if you want to connect with me directly, then send an email to Jake, Jake, at jakejacobsconsulting.com. And I read every one of the emails that comes in, and I respond to them personally. And so if there's a way that one of our programs or our coaching or our consulting can help you get faster, easier, better results, then let's have a conversation and find a way to make that happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake. We appreciate you. So there you go, guys. We will put all of Jake's links, website, and social media in the show notes so that you can check him out. I would like to invite you guys to get the book. It's very helpful. You're going to learn a lot from it. I'm telling you guys. So there you go. Here's another episode on how to build a team podcast, and we will catch you again next time.